Today's episode is brought to you by Hidden House Coffee. Go check out their locations here in Orange County, California, or get some coffee delivered to your house at hiddenhousecoffee.com.
Are you guys editing this part out, or were you just rolling?
I don't know. We'll see. We're going right now. I'll do the intro later. We're fine.
It's interesting because, dude, it takes a long time. You know, I got into jiu-jitsu when I was like, I don't know, 31. Yeah. And most people, a black belt takes about 10 years, give or take. And that's a long ass time to train. And then, of course you had COVID come into the situation. That didn't do us any favors. So yeah, definitely when you see somebody wearing a black belt in jiu-jitsu, I can't speak for all the arts, but in jiu-jitsu, it means that they've been consistent at something for a very long time.
Yeah. No, for sure. I'm at 5 years of like actual consistent.
Oh, right. So what are you a blue belt or a purple?
Purple.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm at 5 years of actual dedication and commitment is the more I think about it, I'm like, bro, I'm not even close. Like, I got a long way to go. That's why I said like, I want to get it someday when I'm ready, obviously.
I don't want to brag. Yeah. I got a year and a half of non-consistent, so I'm that white belt, you know what I'm saying?
Dude, the thing about jiu-jitsu too is there's levels to the game. Like, because I weigh, 215, I'm a little bit of a bigger guy. I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 8-9 years. So in general, I'll do pretty well. And then you go to like a comp class, or you go to a class where guys are like doing this as a profession, and it just get your ass kicked. It's just, you realize that in life there's levels to the game. Just like anything. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. I literally said that this morning. One of our, are you a coffee fan at all? Do you coffee?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We could send you out a package later, but I have a coffee company here in Orange County. And one of my roasters just started about 3 months ago, was a high school wrestler. And he's got the bug bad, where it's like his whole Instagram is literally just jiu-jitsu. But we were talking last night. I was like, dude, there's levels, it's a buddy of mine makes me feel like I'm watching my daughter play with her doll every time. And it's just like, can't do anything about it. And, because he was talking about how he's starting to finally see some progression and stuff. I was like, bro, it's just levels. I get rolled up super easily, and I can roll up random people super easily, but there's just like that level.
Yeah. I mean, if it's one thing, I don't know if this is like, are you guys editing this part out, or were you just rolling?
I don't know. We'll see. We're going right now. I'll do the intro later. We're fine.
The thing about jiu-jitsu is I especially think for a dad, I mean, if we could open it up however you want, but jiu-jitsu for a dad, I think is very valuable. I think jiu-jitsu for any man is very valuable, because I think that a lot of guys have a false impression of their capabilities. And this goes for fitness too. But I think that there's nothing more humbling and eye-opening than when you show up for your first day of jiu-jitsu and you think you're a big, strong guy, and all of a sudden a petite female just puts you into a pretzel. And, there's two ways you can react from that, right? One way is like, oh, this is stupid, this isn't for me. The other way is like, wow, like I want to get better so that doesn't happen again. I think that jiu-jitsu humbles you, because no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what you're doing, even as you get really good in jiu-jitsu, you're always going to get your ass kicked. Like, and it's a very humbling sport that I think men need in their life.
1,000,000%.
Everybody needs to get humbled now and then. It just keeps you. There's always a bigger fish. And anyway. Hey guys, quick break. This is Jordan with Good Dude, Good Dad. Huge shout out to our sponsor, Hidden House Coffee. Get 15% off your next order by going to hiddenhousecoffee.com and using the code GDGD15. It'll be in the details and description down below. Make sure you subscribe, and a huge shout out to Rode as well. Now back to the show. Hey guys, welcome back to another Good Dude, Good Dad podcast. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Ben.
And today we have a very special guest on. I was just telling him I was fangirling a little bit earlier. I've been watching him for a long time. But we have Mr. Jason Khalipa. I'm gonna throw out some stats real quick. Jason was a 2008 Fittest Man on Earth, CrossFit Games champion, 7-time CrossFit Games competitor, founder of NC Fit, creator of the MRAP mentality, author of As Many Reps as Possible, He is a entrepreneur, a business leader, a public speaker, but most of all, he is a dad. And Jason, dude, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank
And
you for having me.
he's yeah, a brown belt in jiu-jitsu too, so you better watch out.
I'm trying to add accolades. You know, I got into shooting sports recently, so I'm trying to, and I'm yeah. Anyways, I do a lot of stuff with law enforcement, and so I'm thinking about becoming a reserve law enforcement. That'd be fun too.
That'd
So
be
we'll see.
super cool. Yeah, you've
Yeah,
been doing is it the tactical games?
yeah. So I competed in the tactical games. That was really great. But yeah, always trying something new, trying to level myself up. That's kind of like the overall mission.
Dude, that's so awesome. Hey, real quick side note. We've been having last time we had a technical difficulty. If for whatever reason we disappear for a second, just hang tight. We'll come right back on. I don't know what happened at Riverside one time, but it did it. But I want to give you a heads up. But
Okay.
Jason, dude, we're just gonna start how we always do. You can go as in depth or non in depth as you want, but just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I got into the fitness space really young. I was racing BMX bikes, and that's kind of like the sport I played. My dad is from Iran. My mom is an American born, but Italian roots. So I'm half Italian, half Persian. Um, I grew up not playing many traditional sports. I got into BMX pretty early. I started competing on a national level at a pretty young age. And then long story short, I got into high school, found football, really, made a bunch of friends doing that, and that was great. I found the conventional gym when I was about 15, 16, when I was in high school. My parents took me there, and I started working at the front desk of a traditional health club when I was pretty young. And I was exposed to these people just training hard, getting after it. And I was exposed to all different people. And so when I graduated from high school and I was going to college, I ended up not applying myself as much as I wanted to. Some regrets there for sure. Went to college, went to a junior college because I didn't get into the school that I was looking for, and I didn't end up playing sports, which I thought I was going to. And I ended up doing sales at the conventional gym. And that was a really good opportunity to learn a lot about talking to people, especially from different cultures, different backgrounds. And so I learned a lot about the business of fitness there. Then I found CrossFit about 2 years later, got really developed into that, found Muay Thai, got into that. And then anyways, I graduated from college in 2008. At that point, I opened up my first gym. I also won the CrossFit Games that year. And then it just kind of spawned from there. For about 10 years, maybe even longer, I traveled the world teaching seminars for CrossFit. I opened up brick and mortar gyms all over the world for corporate wellness and our owned and operated. I competed professionally in the sport of CrossFit for about 10 years. So that was a year round thing and just was really deep into it. In 2016, my daughter was diagnosed with leukemia. So that took me away from the sport. And I pivoted my kind of competitive interest into jiu-jitsu. So I got into jiu-jitsu about 2016-ish, right? About 8-9 years ago. And found that to be a phenomenal outlet. So for the last, I'd say 8 years or so, been evolving as an athlete, as a husband, as a dad. I have 2 kids. I married, my wife and I got together at 14, 15. We've been together ever since.
Dang.
So I've been with one girl there, had one job, kind of unique, I guess, in that sense, right? I worked for one gym and then I found my girlfriend at 15. We've just been together ever since. Had 2 kids. And then anyways, so then at that point, right, kind of figuring out where I wanted to go, right? And so we had a bunch of gyms and COVID hit that evolved things again. And so now where we're at is I own and operate gyms still, but a strong passion of mine is a new company we started about a year and a half ago called Train Hard. And Train Hard is really designed for men, to help men train hard so they can protect, provide, and be capable. That's really important to me. And so we put out online programs for men. I do in-person meetups for men every single weekend in a parking lot for free. And I'm just trying to get as many guys off the couch training hard because we need to do better. We need to be able to show up for our families, and fitness is a major component of that. So now my daughter's going into high school. My son's 11. He plays all the sports. I'm fully engulfed in the sport thing. That's it. That's what I'm doing.
Just living life.
Yeah, that's it.
Go for it. That's awesome, man. That's such a rare thing too, to be able to find. I actually have a friend of mine who he's a good buddy of mine. Him and his wife met at 14, and they've been married this entire time. They're now in their, I think, 37 and 36. They have 3 kids. I mean, that's impressive, dude. That's kudos to you guys. From that, like, I know this is kind of like off topic because you normally talk about fitness and all that kind of stuff. What is like the biggest thing you've learned about you and your wife and marriage from, transitioning from kids all the way through all these different important parts of your life up and until now?
I think having a shared vision of what success looks like, having a shared vision of what you want your life to look like is really important. I think any guy listening needs to like really take to heart this concept of you're burning the boats. I think it's really, really important. Like when I asked my wife to marry me and she said yes, and when we got married, like I burned the boats. Like there is no turning back for me. And that's my mentality. My mentality is I'm in this for life. Like, and I mean that. Like I'm not messing around. And I know that there's high divorce rates. I get that people get divorced for a bunch of different reasons. And I'm not saying that like, I'm not shaming people for getting divorced. What I'm saying is the mindset I went into marriage with was that will never be the case. And it's not like this nonchalant, like, oh, well, we're going to get married and we'll see what happens, right? So because that's my mindset, the reason why I'm bringing this up is that every decision, every action that I take has to back that mindset up. Meaning I have to be intentional. I have to have good communication. We have to have shared values and shared interests, especially on the big things. We need to communicate well on where we want our children to go. And we need to be able to do so in the fashion of like, I will do everything in my power to show up as the man that I know she needs because I burned the boats and separating is not an option. So let's come together and work through these things. And I feel like that's been a major, major cornerstone in our relationship is that we're in this together for life. Let's communicate how to do it better. You know what I mean? Versus something wrong shows up and then all of a sudden you start creating this little wedge and that wedge turns into something huge. And we've been through plenty of adversity. And I think that communication is number one, and then coming to it with that same mindset, like we are both in this, let's collaborate.
Dude, that's so good. I love that. Yeah. Too many people come in with that, like you were saying, that nonchalant, like, oh, we'll just see how it happens, But it's really, it's a, like you said, it's an intentional thing you have to do to go into your marriage and then stay intentional throughout your marriage. Ben and I were just talking about that the other day. It's hectic. We both have three young kids. We both work a ton. Our wives are busy, and we're trying to get to our stuff. Jiu-jitsu, working out, all that kind of stuff. We're trying to give them their time, jiu-jitsu, mom time, all the different stuff. And then you have the kids, and we were just talking about like, it's challenging, but as long as you're intentional about it, we were talking about, you got to learn, some people have to learn how to date their wives again. You got to learn how to find little things to keep that relationship going, that spark going. So from that, let me ask you, man, so when your daughter, when you found out your daughter had leukemia, how did that kind of like, how was that whole process? Can you walk us through that a lot? Because I know
Sure.
if it's too painful, we can stay out of that for sure. But I know there's a lot of guys going through some tough times where they have their kids are diagnosed or something like that. How did you handle that? How did you guys handle that as a marriage? And then also how were you able to use fitness and the things that you love to help like jiu-jitsu and stuff to help with that during that time?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, just to kind of like summarize what I was talking about, that I believe that if a man finds their queen, I believe this to my core, that if you find the right woman, or if you find the right partner in life, this goes for women too, of course, that it could unlock potential in you that you never thought possible. It could give you more than you ever thought was capable of yourself. And so if you're a guy listening to this right now, if you find your queen, man, I'm telling you, it will unlock something in you that will unleash this capability in you and this bedrock that just will last a lifetime. And that's what I've found in my wife. And life is going to be hard. Like that's my expectation. My expectation is that life is going to be hard. My dad taught me that at a really young age. He came here from Iran, and the way that it happened, it just was like very eye-opening, right? And he would always tell me, like, Jason, the expectation should be that life is going to be hard. So enjoy when things are good and get through the tough times. And that's the way I think about life. And it's not a doom and gloom. It's just reality, right? Like I've experienced a lot of that. And I'm sure a lot of people listening have. But if the expectation is that life is going to be hard, they need to do life with someone that's got your back at all times. And I think that if you find the right spouse, that's that person, right? That's that person that's got your back at all times. And communication and that kind of stuff that I think is so important. So when it comes to Ava and leukemia, you know, for us, for a little while, a couple of months, maybe even a little longer, you know, Ava had shown signs of leg pain. Like I would carry her a lot. We thought it was growing pains. We thought she was just kind of being a kid. Leg pain, tiredness. She'd fall asleep at school. Just a variety of different things. She was like 4 or 5 years old. And then one day, I remember, you know, my sister was getting married, and my daughter was the flower girl, and she couldn't walk down the aisle. And I remember saying to myself, like, something's not up. Like you don't get lazy and not walk down the aisle. You know, like you have to be in like really bad pain. And shortly thereafter that, we saw some bruising occur, and we took her in for blood work. And they had avoided blood work. I think in hindsight, my only regret with that case, and it's easy to say in hindsight, but I wish we maybe would have gotten blood work earlier. But the doctors, we took her to a bunch of different doctors, and they never even recommended that. It just wasn't a thing at the time because it was kind of invasive for a 4 or 5 year old, you know, to take blood work. Again, hindsight's 2020.
Right.
So anyways, she's bruising. So we take her to the doctor, and we just get a call at night. And this is a kind of call that no one ever wants to get. And you gotta learn to train hard now today to understand how to utilize positive self-talk and recognizing what's in your control to overcome when life has like a hurdle like this. So we get a call, and the doctor's like, look, dude, and he didn't say it like that. He said, hey, he goes, Jason, he goes, I need you and your family to immediately, I need you and your daughter and your wife to immediately leave home and go to the Stanford ER. Immediately. Like it wasn't like, oh, when you get a chance, you know, whatever. And so we left our dinner there, and we didn't come back for a little while, right? I mean, it was just, that's what happened. So we ended up in the ER and learned a lot about myself that night, learned a lot about my wife that night. You know, it was about 2 a.m. and there was a nurse that came in a little bit before that, and she goes, hey, she tells my wife and I, she goes, hey, I've seen a lot of stories through this hospital. I just want to remind you guys to keep your date nights. And at that point, we didn't even have our news yet. We didn't even know what was going on, but we were in the on-call. We were in like the, we were in the section of the hospital where she already knew what was going on, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget what that nurse said, because at the time, I like really was like offended. I was like really upset about it because I felt like she was kind of putting this omen on us, like, hey, because we had gotten no news yet. But it turns out that advice of keeping our date nights was like one of the most critical things we did over the next 3 years getting through the leukemia treatment. I would recommend that for any guy listening. If you and your wife do not regularly go out for some type of date, I'm telling you, you're missing out, because especially when you have kids, all of your conversations end up talking about nothing but the kids, and you forget to build your relationship. Then all of a sudden the kids leave the house and it's back to you and her. And if you haven't developed that relationship still, what do you have? Yeah. So anyways, we get this news, and then about 2 a.m., the doctor tells me that, you know, Ava has leukemia, and that was a whole slew of things from there.
Wow. Yeah, I want to go back to a comment you said at the very beginning of that, but you said something about training hard now for the positive mindset. And from you and your background and where you come from, I would love for you to kind of just go down that rabbit hole more, because I think the mindset component is something that is not something that's often looked at, right? Like a lot of guys, specifically men, I'm going to speak to men, they have this mentality. I had the same mentality of like, oh, dude, I'm good, right? Like I can lift weights, I can go run, I can train jiu-jitsu, you know, I can protect my family, whatever the case may be. But the actual mindset component to just the monotonous daily life, can you kind of speak into that more? Because I don't think men understand the value of that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I want to make sure my mic was still. I think what we're about to talk about, and I really appreciate the question, by the way.
Yep.
I think what we're about to talk about right now is probably one of the most important things that a guy can wrap his head around, is that we train hard to protect, to provide, to be able to run, jump, climb, lift, to be able to go do things with our kids, to show up at work the best version of ourselves, like 100%. We train hard to look the part and act the part for our wife, right? We train hard that way. We want to be attractive to our wives. And the most important thing that we get out of training on the mats or in the gym is the mindset piece, is the fact that you didn't want to do something and you still did it, is the fact that you had to overcome adversity, whether, these micro doses of adversity you expose yourself intentionally to every day, they start to make you more mentally resilient to difficult things. And especially for kids, our kids live in a world where everything is instantaneous and easy, and life is going to come and kick you in the nuts. And we have to teach them how to overcome hard things. Adversity outside the gym, we don't want much of it. We want just enough through sports and through other stuff, just enough, right? We want adversity. My son yesterday cried at a volleyball game. He's 11. I couldn't believe it. But I needed him to go through that experience. I don't want that much adversity in life. Like, I don't want kids to get hurt. I don't want kids to go through these things. What I do, though, is I want to put them on the mats. I want to expose them to workouts. I want them to do hard things because they're going to learn how to handle them better when life hits them. Same thing goes for guys. You learn how to compartmentalize, how to utilize positive self-talk. When you're going through a difficult workout, instead of saying, I suck, I'm this, I'm that, reframing it in a way where it's like coaching yourself through a workout. Hey, find your heels, keep your chest up, whatever it is. If you were to having a friend in the room, you wouldn't be saying things like, dude, you can't breathe, you suck, you whatever. But all of a sudden, that's what goes through our mind. Yeah. But if we could reframe those negative thoughts into coaching ourselves through a workout, now we're going to get more out of our training, more out of our jiu-jitsu, more out of this. But more important than all of that is that when life hits you hard outside the gym, your mind has been ingrained to take negative thoughts and to compartmentalize them and transfer them into positive. Mm-hmm. Perfect example. This is a real life example. I'm in the hospital, and obviously I've trained this for 20 years, competing in CrossFit. I spent time with the mindset coach. Like, so this is something you have to develop over time, right? Mm-hmm. But this idea of positive self-talk. So I used it every single day in training. You had a negative thought, boom, switch it. Coach yourself, coach yourself, coach yourself. So I'm in the hospital, and our daughter starts coding. I mean, this is like really bad, like really, really bad, right? And she ends up getting taken to the ICU, and it really bad. And as she's getting like carted out, I'll never forget. I said to my wife, I'm like, hey, did you see the way the tone changed in the way that doctor talked? Like, it started off at like level 1,000, and then it dropped down to like level 100. And the reason why I'm bringing this up to you guys is that my mind instantly gravitated towards pulling a positive out of a negative situation. And that's an example of what training can do for you.
Yeah, the muscle awareness, or the factor of, like you said, doing something hard for so long and ingraining it in you became second nature to yourself. I mean, to be honest, obviously it'd be really hard for us to say this, but I think we can pretty much say this would be a fair statement, is if you weren't the guy that you are or were back then, you might not have been the current guy you're standing in front of us right now. No. And like, that's genuinely the power of mindset, right? Like, so if you're listening, like, don't miss that. I was that guy where I ignored it for a long time. I mean, obviously you don't know anything about me, but I did a couple combat deployments. I was in the Marine Corps and went through the whole rabbit hole of having to figure out my own self mentally, because I would compare myself to my buddies that were not as fortunate as me. And so for me, the mindset thing was like, oh, these guys are just like weak that they can't figure it out. But I didn't realize like the power that actually came with that, and with how I treated some of those guys. And it's not something I can ever take back, but it's something moving forward. I'm going to do my best effort to make sure I can help any guy, girl, whoever listening or in a conversation, like, understand, like, hey, the words that we speak to ourselves and to others genuinely have power.
Yep. 100%. And that training has power. Like, I would say that no matter what a guy listening to this right now, no matter what you're going through, I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter to me. A divorce, a shitty job, a bad, whatever, you name it, name the thing. Wake up early tomorrow and go do a workout. And I guarantee you, you're going to feel better when you're done. It doesn't matter because you're doing these things that are going to release endorphins. They're going to make you feel like you're committed. They're going to show you that hard work. They're going to make you feel better and show up with more confidence. And you asked a question earlier about like there's the third thing is like, what can a guy do who wants to? Your third question that you were going to ask, right?
Yeah.
And at the cornerstone of all of this comes to training. Like if you're not exercising your body, I think it's really difficult to be mentally fit if you're not are also physically fit. It's very difficult. Now, I'm not saying you can't be that, but I think it's easier to be mentally fit, to have confidence and positive attitude if you are working on your own self. And not to mention, you got to be there for your kids. So it's important.
Yeah, I love how you said that you're not only training yourself, but you're helping your son through that same thing. Like me and my son, we constantly have a saying in our house. I said, "Hey, Aiden," our last name is Aiden. I'm like, "Aidens do hard things." We keep pushing through when we don't want to. Whether it's climbing a rock that seems scary or helping your mom with something that you said you were going to do. We keep our word and we do hard things. What do you think is the importance of teaching your kids early on, also to do hard things, so that as they grow up, they become better men?
I mean, I think doses of it, micro doses of adversity and doing hard things are like one of the more powerful things we could do as parents for our children. I think that this idea and this notion that you're going to put them in a bubble is unfortunate because eventually that bubble will be gone, or it should be, and they need to be prepared to take on life. And I think every kid is different, and I think that parenting advice is very nuanced, very, very nuanced. Every kid is different. Every relationship is different. And I think that's really important to note here. But in general, I think that we as parents should embody what we want our children to emulate, right? We want to be good humans. We want to be loving and caring. I want my son to be the guy who is the most compassionate, caring, loving kid in the class who also can defend himself and defend others. And I don't think those things have to be on opposite sides. I think you can be both of those things. And I think jiu-jitsu and self-confidence through training allow you to do that, especially as a man. I think for women, they need to have self-confidence as well. They need to look to dad to say, hey, what characteristics does dad emulate that one day they're going to look for in another man? And I take that responsibility really seriously. So I would say those are some of the things that I think about on a regular basis. Here we do weekly self-defense for both the kids. It's kind of like brushing your teeth in our house. It's not something they love to do. Full transparency, it's just something that I need them to do. Mm-hmm. And then we do a lot of sports. And I think sports have been incredibly valuable for my family because you get to be around like-minded men and women, but generally men, who want to shepherd these young boys into good young humans. And they're getting it from other voices instead of just dad. So that's been really valuable for us. I have a lot to talk about on this. I love these subjects. This is very important to me. Like we don't get any second chances. So the more conversations like I have about this kind of stuff, the more it elevates, like makes me think too,
Yeah. No, Jason, you're speaking so much into just what Jordan and I want this podcast to be, man, is we don't care who you are, how big of a platform you are, where you come from. If you're a dad, a husband, or you're wanting to be either one of those, like we want this to be something that all of our stories collectively can help shape and maybe change some generations. And, if you're someone listening also and you don't think some of this stuff is real, like I just had last night with my daughter, she's 6. She said to me, she's kind of in that age of wondering why she can't marry me, and she's like, well, you're married to mom. And I was like, yeah, well, mom and dad, like she's my wife. I was like, she's my queen, you're my princess. And we're all these things. And she's like, okay, well then I'm going to kiss my brother. And I was like, you can love on your brother for sure. She's like, well, if you can love mama the way that you love her, why can't I love my brother? And I'm saying all that to say is she asked me, well, if I can't marry you, then what other guy am I going to marry? And I said, you know what, sweetheart, that's a fantastic question. And I want you to learn something right now. And I told her, I said, I'm going to always do my best in everything that I do to show you how you should always be treated. No matter what in this life, I'm going to show you, your dad is going to show you how every boy / man should always treat you and what you need to look forward to. I said, I'm going to mess up, but I'm going to own those mess ups. And I told her, I said, what we're talking about right now is I'm hoping that I can show you as you grow up that how I treat your mom and how I treat you is how you should always be treated, if not better. And it like hit her. She's 6 years old last night. And I'm literally trying to like run out the door for jiu-jitsu. And she's like, Dad, well, I don't know if I'm going to find another guy like that. And I'm like almost about to get a little emotional because I'm like, oh, shoot, like, dude, she's 6, but she's putting these things together. She's watching the things I'm doing to my wife. She's watching how I treat her. Like, that's powerful.
Very.
You know, and I don't know if there's anything more realistic that I can share to other people, other men, besides something like that. And if you don't have kids or you're wanting to have kids, like, dude, kids are not dumb. They're sponges, and they're way smarter than we ever think they are. But the power of how we treat them, like you said, Jason, we don't get a second chance.
No. And it doesn't just go with like the way you treat like it's the way you treat your spouse in front of them too is so incredibly important. Like, can you imagine? That's why as I get older, you know, I'm 39. As I get older, I've been doing a lot of reflection on like why certain people are the way they are. And a lot of that comes back to their childhood and overcoming trauma. And, you know, I'm learning to have more empathy for people for sure. And it's also making me realize the impact that we have on our children, right? Like we could really, like, for lack of a better term, screw some things up, or we could be intentional and try and like, again, like you were mentioning, like, hey, I messed this up, but I'm fixing it, right? Like, because we're not going to be perfect, no one is, but at least we can be intentional through that process. And that's one of the reasons, you know, so I have a podcast, the Jason Khalipa podcast, and we have the Train Hard app, which is predominantly men. And right now we have 600 guys going through a 45-day challenge from May 1st through Father's Day, June 15th. And just watching the communication in there and watching these guys in particular just trying to hold each other accountable to do better is like awesome. And that's what this podcast is about, right? Like, because if we're not talking about it, then who is? And there's this whole generation of people that think this idea of masculinity is bad or whatever. And I don't even know anymore if that's going to be, that shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah.
People should say that, look, masculinity is a great thing for society. It needs to, but when they think about that term, it should be, you know, guys who are caring, loving, compassionate, and also can, like, as Tim Kennedy said, like rip your face off, right? Or you know what I mean? Like you can be both of those things. Yeah.
We had a guest recently. His name is Tim also, and he said something about being a multi-dimensional man, where he said his version is he should be able to walk down the street with his wife and his children and protect them if he had to. But he should also be able to bend down on one knee when his daughter scrapes her knee and comfort her and show her, you know, empathy and softness, or, you know, be at bedside with your mom and cry with her. He said we should strive to be a multidimensional man. And I think the way he put it was just such a powerful tool, right? Like, you should be able to rip someone's face off, but you should also be able to have these conversations without, you know, being criticized for not being, you know, hard or you're too soft.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, dude, I love that. And man, there's so many good things. What do you think is the power and importance of, like you were talking about your app, surrounding yourself with like-minded men that are wanting to, like the 45-day challenge that you guys are doing right now, and you're saying it's so encouraging seeing those men in that group. What's the power of surrounding yourself with men that are trying to be better, trying to work on that kind of stuff? What's the significance of that?
Well, I'm really blessed, if I'm being honest. Like, I kind of had cheat codes, right? Because, you know, I came up in the CrossFit space and I was around a lot of different, you know, groups of men and women, but always around people who wanted to level up. Always. That was always the mentality. Like, we want to be better. Then I got into jiu-jitsu, same exact thing. And what I've learned over the years, because I've been in the fitness space now for 20 plus years, is that not everybody comes with that type of demographic around them. Like if you get into corporate America, I live in the Bay Area, right? You guys in SoCal kind of have it, but here in the Bay Area, like, dude, I'm in the tech capital of the world, and most of my friends, people I know, are gazillionaires. Like money is not a factor, right? But yet they find lack of fulfillment and purpose, and they need connection, and they're lacking that. And so that's what we do in a parking lot every week. I started a men's club 2 years ago because I found that guys at my kids' school, they weren't used to like what I was very used to, like going shoulder to shoulder with guys like you and just doing hard shit. Like it was just like, it was like so common, like driving to wherever, right? Like it's just a part of my life. But a lot of guys don't have exposure to that. And so I wanted to start offering it. So we started offering it 2 years ago. And dude, it's just been building and building and building. And one of the most valuable things that was told to me yesterday was this guy says to me, he's like, hey, he goes, I've made more friends here in the last 8 months through the Train Hard Men's Club than I have in the last 18 years of my life. And it's stuff like that I think is really powerful. And so I'd recommend any guy listening, like if you find yourself sheltering more, especially through COVID and online, reach out to a friend, reach out to a neighbor, go do a workout together. And what you'll find is that shared suffering connects you guys. And then afterwards, we always go grab coffee. And that's where the real conversation happens. But it's after the hard shit. So it's like you need to do something hard together to then create this bond to then go have a conversation.
Yeah, dude, I love that. Shared suffering does. I mean, that's how, honestly, through CrossFit is how I met my wife. We met at the CrossFit gym I was coaching at. It just so happened that me and all my best friends happened to go to the same gym at the same time. We pulled each other in. But man, the closeness that we had from just shared experiences, shared workouts. I mean, honestly, we still talk about it. And that was 2011, 2010. Now we're in 2025. We're like, dude, remember when we used to go and we do this and this and this, and we overtrained like crazy, but we had a great time. And then we go and eat and have these amazing conversations and just decompress from the stuff we had going on in our lives, the crap we were going through. And just that shared suffering built a kind of amazing bond that most people don't get. Ben got that in the Marine Corps, which is
right.
That's a whole different level. But did you have anything you want to?
No, I was just going to ask you, to kind of apply all of these things to everything we're saying. One of the questions we like to ask people for a tangible thing is, what to you, Jason, makes a good dude and a good dad?
I think at the end of the day, it's being intentional and try not to have any regrets. I think that's at the end of the day, when it all comes down to it, you could say, oh, it's love, it's care, it's this, it's that. Well, it's like, you don't know what you don't know. And I've made plenty of mistakes, right? I've learned a lot over the years, but I think if you're intentional and if you have this mentality, like, dude, you got no redos, and you have a daily check-in with yourself, like, hey, how am I doing? Am I doing well in these specific areas, right? I think if you do that on a micro basis, you won't look back a year or two from now and be like, wow, I really messed up then. So I'd say what makes a good dude is a guy who's self-aware enough to reflect on a regular basis and say, hey, am I on the right path? Because then if or when things go wrong, you can't have any regrets because you had those check-ins. It's like, I think about it all the time, whether it's the competitions I've done in CrossFit, Jiu-Jitsu, whether it's business, right? I mean, especially shutting down, opening gyms, whatever it might be. Like, if I could go back in time, would I have done anything different? And the answer is no, because in those moments, I did have those reflections. I think as a dad, that's super important because I don't want to wake up 20 years from now and think I was a total asshole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, I already asked you, what's one actionable step? And I think you already said it, but what's one actionable step that you'd give someone who's trying to be a better dude, better dad?
I mean, it's working out. Like, if anybody on this call or this podcast is not exercising regularly, you're missing out on like the greatest anti-aging, anti-stress, pro badass medicine you've ever thought of. Like, I can't fathom anyone who listens to this podcast who wants to level up as a dad and a husband who isn't exercising regularly. It would blow my mind. Like, before you could think about any of the other hacks, from TRT to sun to you name any of the other hacks out there, just start by taking a walk and doing some push-ups and then evolve from there. And if you want to jump on one of our training programs, obviously we'd love to have you at Train Hard. But the key is like, no matter what you do, you got to do something. And think about what that emulates for your kids too. Like, just real quick, the other day, my son deadlifted 2 wheels, so 225, but he was on a ladies bar, so it was 215, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he deadlifts 215. Granted, he's been deadlifting for years, so he deadlifts it. And I was like, bro, dude, that was legit. I was like, you should be super proud of yourself. Like that's a big deal. 2 wheels is like that's cool.
Yeah.
And I'll never, like, the way he looked at me, like, just dumbfounded. He's like, dude, Dad. He's like, every guy could do that. Every guy. And I was like, no, Caden, they can't. And it was a good reminder for me that, like, the people he's surrounded with, every guy could do it with ease. Like, everybody he knows that comes to our house, all of our friends, everybody could do it with ease. But the reality is most people can't. And so it's like, what are you showing your children is possible, right? Like, be the example, set the example of hard work, of training, of strength, and all those things carry over, I think. Because it's hard to know dad is working hard at work. It's easy to see him doing burpees and recognize what hard work is.
Yeah. No, dude, that is powerful. How old is your son?
11.
11 years old, deadlifting that. Dude, he should feel proud of that. Like, I know
Plenty of men that can't.
dozens of men right now that couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But that's something that's so powerful that you just said, that his daily life and what he's surrounded with is already what he's becoming and what he is. And again, like, that is something that's so freaking powerful to anyone listening, man or woman. You are who you surround yourself with. Like, if you continue to surround yourself with things that are not great, unfortunately, you're going to fall into that. And if you don't think that's true, then you got either a hard lesson to learn, or you're just, like, kind of fooling yourself. But dude, that's crazy. 11 years old.
I love that because, like, first of all, I'm thinking of it from if that's his normal, imagine where he's going to be down the road. Like, there was a great line that my dad always had for me where I was like, Dad, I want to be just like you when I grow up. I used to say that when I was a kid. I was like, Dad, I want to be just like you when I grow up. My dad goes, no, if you're just like me, I failed. He's like, I want you to stand on my shoulders and have my ceiling be your ground floor. And that's how I know I succeeded. And I'm like, I'm hearing that in my voice as you're telling me that story. I'm like, dude, the way that the men that you've surrounded yourself with, the effort and work that you've put in, not to toot your own horn, but imagine where your son's ground floor is now that he gets to build off of. That's insane.
Yeah, and then or all the guys that, like, my daughter's surrounded by, like, all, consistently. And, I think about that all the time. Growing up, my dad, again, he came from a different culture. It was just different. I can't remember him doing anything physical that I could think of. Maybe at one time a swim. And again, he was phenomenal. I am blessed to have great parents. But when it comes to physical activities, which is so visual as a kid, I can't think back to much. Whereas our kids, they're being surrounded by an ecosystem of just effort everywhere. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. I don't care what you go and pursue in life. You can do anything you want. And that's obviously our mentality. But you got to put in your effort, right? And because it's not going to happen overnight. And I think exercise is a great viewpoint to look through, because effort is all you see. You know what I mean? And I think that's like the intangible that you could show your children. Like, right now, we're doing this challenge, like I said, and it goes with no alcohol, 45 burpees a day, exercise every day, 50 grams of protein by 9 a.m. for 45 days, right? And the goal is, the reason why we're eating protein in the morning is because you're not just instantly grabbing whatever you find midday when you're starving. Yeah. We're getting rid of alcohol, because I think that's one of the biggest things that's holding guys back for sure. I think they need to reevaluate what moderation looks like for them. I'm not saying you shouldn't drink, but I'm saying you should drink intentionally and not just as like a crutch.
Yes.
And then obviously the burpees. But back to the burpees, what we're seeing is 45 burpees takes 3 to 5 minutes. And all of a sudden you're seeing kids just jump in because they want to be like your parents. And that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had it for now, I think I'm like on 70 or so days straight, where I just like, hey, no matter what, like, I'm gonna get my baseline workout in, but I always want to do 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups. Like, just it has to happen at some point during the day. And yesterday I was down, it was late, and I was getting ready to put my kids to bed, and I was like, all right, I gotta get these done real quick. So I'm doing push-ups with my 6-month-old, and my 4-year-old son runs over, And he just lays down next to me and he starts doing push-ups. And I was like, what are you doing, bud? He's like, Dad, I'm being like you. That's what I'm doing. And I just, in that moment, it gave me such pure joy that I'm like, man, like this is the reason why I'm doing this. And this is the reason I have to stay consistent with it, is because I am changing generations by him watching what I'm doing.
It's trainhard.fit.
So it's th.fit is the website.
Okay.
And I got to tell guys who are listening to this, like, I'm on a mission to level as many men up as possible.
Yeah.
And the training programs we're offering through th.fit are just, they're great, but the community on that is just incredible. And yeah, so did you see it, th.fit?
Yeah, I'm on it right now.
I was going to tell you, dude, do a shameless plug. We want to know, like, where to find you, all this different stuff.
What I'm realizing more and more, and I feel like, just honestly, I feel like there's been this mission presented to me to make a bigger impact on men. And I feel very strongly on that. And I've been given signs nonstop, because I believe more than ever, especially for our youth, they need to be guided in a positive way. And I think that where I can contribute is on the fitness side of the house. And it just starts to unlock so many things for guys. I cannot tell you how many guys come to this men's club. I have this one guy. He probably makes, I don't know, a couple $1 million a year. And he would come in kind of a little bit timid, whatever. Dude, he starts coming here for 6 months. All of a sudden, he walks different. His shoulders are back more. He carries himself with confidence. And it's not a money thing. It's not an ego thing. It's a pride thing, because he's training hard and his body is a representation of that. And so for any guy who's listening, who's like chasing down the coin, dude, it's all good to make money and provide for your family. I'm all about it. But if you're not also taking care of yourself, you're missing out on something that's really, really special. And you need to join a group of like-minded men who are on the same path.
Yeah, dude, I am so thankful Jordan reached out to you, because, dude, I've said it before, but I think as I'm sitting here listening to you, the amount of men that I can just think of in my head that are lost, that are seeking something, that don't even know they need to seek something because they're so stuck in their freaking life. It's powerful. I'm thankful that Jordan started this podcast and that I have the privilege of riding along, because, again, not to sound cheesy or lame, but I didn't understand the importance of building a strong brotherhood through things like this. I honestly, I didn't. I had that viewpoint of like, yo, if you're a man, you'll figure it out, which I still believe to be true. The difference is you can't do it by yourself. There's other men that will come alongside and help you and will do that life with you. And third is the accountability between brothers is something that's so much more valuable than I ever imagined. And so, like, just listening to you, I was like, oh, like, that's why we're doing this podcast. You know, we're obviously doing it for the sole purpose of trying to create this, whatever you want to call it, platform, resource, movement of trying to make better men. Because if better men are more present in this world, we are firm believers that half this crap that's going on would probably not even exist.
Yep. Well, and think about it like this. You guys also have a podcast. So what does that do for you two? If selfishly, so for example, I have a co-host and even if no one ever listened to the podcast, no one, right? Or whatever, small amount. You are out there and I'm all over social media and all kinds of stuff, sharing a message. And I don't care who you are. You got to be a real dick to share a message and then not try and emulate that in your own life, right?
Yes.
So if you're out here telling the story about your daughter and then tonight you're being a total whatever, like it's hard to do that. You know what I mean? Because we're holding ourselves accountable because we're putting out information. Dude, it's a great tool to hold us accountable. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I was telling my wife the other day, there was just a time I was wearing my good dude, good dad hat. And there was like this dude that was being a total a-hole. And I was about this close to going off. And then I remembered what I had on my head. And I literally was like, all right, you know what? We're going to let this go. We're going to let it slide. But like, just like you're saying, dude, you can't say one thing and then not, I mean, you can, but it makes it a lot more difficult.
100%. And you know, like the Marine Corps does a good job of creating, fostering connection. That's what it does. It creates a brotherhood, and many other, law enforcement groups. Because I work with Customs and Border Protection, a lot of different law enforcement groups locally, and you see the brotherhood that's created, and it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. But we lose that, especially like if you played sports, you had it. But then what happens? You get out of high school or you get out of college sports, and then you lose that sense of purpose, camaraderie, community, or you get out of the military or law enforcement, whatever it is. And I feel like guys need that outlet because sometimes they feel, and frankly warranted, where like there's certain things they don't need to bring to their wives. It's just like it's just not the right it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't fit well. All of a sudden, if you get a group of guys together after jiu-jitsu and you hit some hard rolls and you start talking about how, hey, you're really struggling because your wife orders way too much Amazon and you're trying to find a way to communicate that better, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, chances are your wife does it and your wife does it and my wife does it. So how do we communicate it effectively? You know what I'm saying? So that's the point.
Yeah, and I think honestly, dude, that's why I fell in love with jiu-jitsu, to be honest with you, is I didn't know I was lacking this brotherhood in my life. I didn't know I was missing it. I have I grew up playing ice hockey. That was my sport. So I've always been around other guys. And then when I quit playing ice hockey, I was like, wait, shoot, man, like I craved it and I loved it. And like you said, going and freaking smashing each other and then being able to grab a beer once in a while and be like, yo, that was sick. Or what's going on? I freaking love it. And I'm so thankful that we're meeting so many more men like yourself doing these things. I had no idea there's so many of us out there doing this. I genuinely didn't know. And I know that sounds stupid, but this platform has opened our eyes up to, oh man, we are in the middle of a shift. Like, this is something that's happening and it's really cool. I think was it our last guest that said that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Adam. Yeah, it's funny. I'm finding two things. Like, one, most men struggle with a lot of the same stuff and they think they're alone. And then there's also a lot of men who want to be, intentional with their lives and want to be better people and want to put the work in, and they feel like they're alone. And like having a platform like this where we're talking to all these different guys, it's like, yo, you're not alone in either one of those. And there's a bunch of guys that want to get around you and help level you up. Jason, I got one last question for you, man, because I know I want to be respectful of your time. But what was it like rolling with Tim Kennedy? I have to ask.
So did you see the video of me and him doing the shooting, grappling, and whatever one?
No, okay. I can look at this now.
Oh, so hey, you'll get a kick out of that one. That's a good video.
It is so good.
Yeah, so I've rolled with Tim, I don't know, 10 times, maybe more. I've had the opportunity to roll with a lot of really high level jiu-jitsu practitioners. Almost everybody that you could think of, many of them I've rolled with. But like when I rolled with Gordon, it was like he was going at a fraction of his capability and still kicked my ass. When I roll with Nicky Rod or J Rod or Marigali or Bushesha, like they're at a fraction of their capability and they're still kicking my ass. Tim, the reason why I name drop those other people is because they're very popular, very good.
Oh, yeah.
Tim, very high level, very good, but he doesn't tone it. He doesn't tone it. He doesn't care. So if you watch the video, George St. Pierre is the GSP is the referee, and I am just getting handed because Tim is like using the walls and double legging me into the walls, and there is no like, oh, I'm gonna beat you, but I'm gonna beat you like nicely.
Yeah.
He just wanted to rip my head off, and I've rolled with him a lot of times. One time, actually, at one of his courses, they threw fake guns and fake knives on the floor. And him and I went at it for a while with fake knives. And dude, I never want to have that experience again because you can do a lot of things with a knife that you wouldn't expect. So he's a total badass, and I'm honored to call him a friend.
Dude, that's so cool.
I had to ask. That was my one fun question because that looked like watching the video. I'm like, this is great content, and that looks absolutely miserable. Like I would hate to have been you in that moment.
Yeah, go. At least I redeemed myself a little bit. You guys, I don't want to give it away, but go watch the video of Tim Kennedy and I challenge. And then for all the guys out there, look, if you are in that boat where you feel a little bit lonely, right now on our community thread, on our app, every I'd say 5 minutes, a new message pops up. I mean, it's just popping every couple minutes of just guys who are like, dude, I'm doing the burpees. I didn't feel like I did it today. I did it. I got a guy in Saudi Arabia who's 350 pounds. The thing about it is there's a lot of like-minded people saying, hey, I didn't want to do this, but I did it anyways, and now I feel better. So go check out the Train Hard app at th.fit.
Awesome, man. Hey, where else can they find you? Obviously, I'll link everything down below in the description. But what's the best place to reach you on all of it?
I would say at Jason, Jason Khalipa on Instagram is probably going to be your best place. We put out quite a bit of content there. And then the Jason Khalipa podcast, if you're a podcast listener. And then obviously th.fit is our website. So all those things would be great. But you can find it all at Jason Khalipa.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, I will link everything down below so that you go check out his podcast. Go check out that video of him and Tim Kennedy, and go check out his fitness app. Jason, dude, thank you again for coming on, man.
Yeah,
We really
you.
appreciate it. Like I said, this is one of the, we've had a lot of really good guests, but this is one I've been really excited for. So thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here.
No, thank you.
Ben,
man.
Thank you as always. Hey, guys, remember, be a good dude, be a good dad.